G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Look and be amazed at the size of the hole left in the Talaria Sting L1E when you remove the battery. As I've mentioned in previous videos, you have to take the ignition key out after switching it off in order to lift the battery restraint hatch. And yeah, that's what's inside it. Tiny little motor, great big battery. Switch with a safety catch and a big circuit breaker. And do not fear, a spare battery is here. Can you tell which one is which? Count the dots. Luke in the book, numero uno. 88 charge-discharge cycles, 3,348 kilometres. And they even come with the stickers pre-attached. And for anybody who ever wondered what's in a rechargeable lithium-ion battery, this is a 13-page material safety data sheet which was shipped with the battery, or at least a copy thereof. This is kind of fascinating. Lithium cobalt oxide 0 to 15% by weight. Manganese 0 to 15% by weight. Nickel 0 to 80% by weight. Fluoride less than 5%. Aluminium 2 to 10%. Graphite 10 to 30%. Styrene butadiene rubber less than 1%. Carboxymethyl cellulose less than 4%. Copper 2 to 10%. Hexafluorophosphate 10 to 20%. Polyethylene less than 4%. Nylon less than 1%. Polypropylene less than 2%. Hazards identification. Dum da dum 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 dum. Explosive risk. This article does not belong to the explosive dangerous goods. Flammable risk. This article does not belong to the flammable material. Oxidation risk. This article does not belong to the oxidation of dangerous goods. Toxic risk. This article does not belong to the toxic dangerous goods. Radioactive risk. This article does not belong to the radiation of dangerous goods. Mordant risk. This article does not belong to the corrosion of dangerous goods. Other risk. This article is the Li-ion battery pack watt-hour rate 2,280 watt-hours, which belong to the class 9 of dangerous goods. First aid measures. Eye. Flush eyes with plenty of water for at least 15 minutes, occasionally lifting the upper and lower eyelids. Get medical aid. Skin. Remove contaminated clothes and rinse skin with plenty of water or shower for 15 minutes. Get medical aid. Inhalation. Remove from exposure and move to fresh air immediately. Use oxygen if available. Ingestion. Give at least 2 glasses of milk or water. Induce vomiting unless patient is unconscious. Call a physician. By geez, you'd want to be bloody healthy in the teeth department. Eat one of them. Firefighting measures. Flashpoint, not applicable. Auto ignition temperature, not applicable. Maybe that's not available. Extinguishing media, water or carbon dioxide. Special firefighting procedures, self-contained breathing apparatus. Unusual fire and explosion hazards. Cell may vent when subjected to excessive heat exposing battery contents. Hazardous combustion products. Carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, lithium oxide fumes. And that there is the vent. Exposure controls personal protection. Respiratory protection. In case of battery venting, provide as much ventilation as possible. Avoid confined areas with venting cell cores. Respiratory protection is not necessary under conditions of normal use. Not necessary. Ventilation, not necessary under conditions of normal use. Protective gloves, not necessary under conditions of normal use. Other protective clothing or equipment, not necessary under conditions of normal use. Personal protection is recommended for venting battery. Respiratory protection, protective gloves, protective clothing, and safety glass with side shields. I'm going to say the Evel Knievel suit with gauntlets and a full face helmet is going to be sufficient protection for unto me to switch off, unplug, lift out, carry away, plonk onto a piece of ground sufficiently removed that if the battery catches on the fire, then after it's been relocated, that's when I reach in here to extract a dry powder extinguisher. So I guess I'm going to have to get a different one of them, because what I need is a carbon dioxide extinguisher, although the battery's going to burn. This will put out the grass fire surrounding the burning battery, which has been removed from the bike, so that I'm only going to lose a battery in the event of a venting cell that hasn't quite caught fire yet. Got to have a plan. Planning to make a plan is not making a plan. So that's what I'm thinking about personal protection recommended for the venting of the battery. Physical and chemical properties: quadrate shape, odour. If leaking, it smells of medical ether. Nothing else there is applicable. pH not applicable as supplied. Stability and reactivity. Stability: product is stable under conditions described in section 7, and this is part 10, section 7. Handling and storage. Batteries should not be opened or destroyed or incinerated, since they may leak or rupture and release to the environment the ingredients that they contain in the hermetically sealed container. Do not short-circuit terminals or overcharge the battery, force over discharge, throw to fire. Do not crush or puncture the battery or immerse in fluids. Precautions to be taken in handling and storing: avoid mechanical or electrical abuse. Storage preferably in cool, dry and ventilated area which is subject to little temperature change. Store at high temperatures should be avoided. Do not place the battery near heating equipment nor exposed to direct sunlight for long periods. Other precaution: the battery may explode or cause burns if disassembled, crushed or exposed to fire or high temperatures. Do not short or install with incorrect polarity. Toxicological information: signs and symptoms, none unless battery ruptures. In the event of exposure to internal contents, vapour fumes may be very irritating to the eyes and skin. Inhalation: it's a lung irritant. Skin contact: it's a skin irritant. Eye contact: it's an eye irritant. Ingestion: poisoning if swallowed. Medical conditions generally aggravated by exposure. In the event of exposure to internal contents, moderate to severe irritation, I guess they mean severe. Burning and dryness of the skin may occur. Target organs: nerves, liver and kidneys. Ecological information: mammalian effects, none known at present, so they don't affect your tits. Ecotoxicity: none known at present. That seems a bit of a non sequitur, considering all the things they tell you it will do if you puncture or open it or burn it or get it too hot. Bioaccumulation potential: slowly biodegradable. Environmental fate: none known environmental hazards at present. Disposal consideration: do not incinerate or subject cells to temperatures in excess of 70 degrees C. Such abuse can result in loss of seal, leakage and or cell explosion. Dispose of in accordance with appropriate local regulations. That's a lovely catch-out end comment, isn't it? Transportation information: label for conveyance, the Class 9 lithium battery hazard label, the cargo aircraft only label, the shipping mark. Proper name: lithium-ion batteries, including lithium-ion polymer batteries, but this is not a one of them. Not a marine pollutant. Proper shipping name: battery-powered vehicle. Hazard classification: the goods shall be complied with the requirements of packing instructions 952 of the 62nd DGR manual of the IATA, International Airline Transport Association, 2021 edition, and the IMDG, that'll be maritime version thereof, Amendment 39 to 18, 2018 edition, including the passing of the UN 38.3 test. Cardboard box, labelled, with a fascinating little sticker that comes apparently applied to the closed box in China, which states 2024 03 27 16 31 41. So at 41 seconds past 31 minutes past 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the 27th of the 3rd month of 2024, that sticker went on that box. and it says 6:10. So I'm figuring that's either the 10th day of the 6th month, which means it spent 3 months in China before it got shipped. And I've collected it at the end of January, start of February, and it cost me $190 to get battery number 2 in the box, shipped 630 kilometres to Glen Innes. And here's a fascinating thing. I've been thinking about getting a second battery so that I can alternate batteries and ideally maybe perhaps double the calendar life of using one battery in the bike, because I think the motor and the gearbox and the drivetrain are going to be more robust over the long term than the battery. And if the circuit board components don't go in the computer, then the weak point would come at about the 7-year mark when the one battery gets to be too old. But with two batteries alternating, you might have 15 years worth. And there should be about 15 years worth in the solar system over there, its batteries. And at the current rate, the amount of fuel being saved by running the motorbike to town for small groceries versus going to town in the Forester, which is actually what the motorbike's competing with. This motorcycle does not compete with a internal combustion engine powered motorcycle in the same class, because I would never have bought one of them. I wouldn't go out there on the highway on a petrol burning motorcycle at 50 kilometres an hour if I was paid, because all it does is contribute to the problem in a slightly different way. The reason I shelled out the money for the motorbike and the solar gear is because I can go and get 2 lots of groceries out of every 3 that I get on a motorbike that burns sunlight or runs on sunlight. And once I get off that bloody red P-plate, I'll be able to tow a trailer and I can take the 40 kilograms in the trailer. So I won't need the Forester except to take rubbish to the dump and maybe go to the next town for whatever reason I have to do that. Now, as I was saying, 7 years of riding the motorbike, the fuel saving equals the $10,049 I paid to have the solar gear installed and delivered and supplied and the GST paid on it. And the current greatly refined figures on that equation are that every kilowatt hour of rechargeable lithium in your electric vehicle is going to cost you 4,000 Australian dollars plus GST to have supplied, delivered and installed. So that'll turn out to $4,400 after you pay the GST. But if you can wangle it that you're doing it as a farm vehicle and you don't have to pay GST because you're a business, then $4,000 per kilowatt hour of battery to be recharged. And if you're in America, your dollars are worth more than ours, so it's probably 3,000 American dollars per kilowatt hour. And any other currency can, well, actually the way American financial situations go, and nobody knows what the American dollar is going to be worth, and pretty soon it will not be the international currency of reference and exchange. But yeah, I paid probably about the same for the motorcycle itself as what I would have paid if I bought a second-hand four-wheel drive that's 15 years old instead of 25 years old. So we'll scratch that off the balance sheet. Because I got the second battery to double the life of the first battery, and I got it half price, I think I'm still kind of in front. You know, I could have paid 10 grand instead of 6 or 7 grand for a replacement car for the Forester. And if the motorcycle saves as much money as its solar gear cost to have installed every 7 years, and if those 2 batteries over there are going to last for 15 years and the batteries over behind me on the solar gear, if they're going to last for 15 years, then yeah, I essentially get about 7 years worth of grocery trips for nothing, eventually. if the system lasts so long and if the shops are still open at the end of the first 7 years. Time will tell, but at least I'm trying. Hey, now here's another funny sort of a thing. That battery left the factory 11 months ago. And when I went to town to collect it, and I rang up on the Tuesday and the battery was delivered in Glen Innes on the Friday morning. I got there and I found my son had already cut it open to push its little button and see that it said it was 100% charged. And I brought it home and it said it was 100% charged. And at about 9 o'clock at night, I pulled it out of its box and I applied a multimeter to its charging of the ports. And it said, confoundingly, 18.6 volts and 19.0 volts, where it's actually sort of supposed to be 65 to 67 kind of thing for a full battery. And then when I pushed on the indicator, I got all five blinkies lighting up. So the indicator said that battery number 2 was full in the box, but at rest, 18.6 and 19, push the indicator, and while your indicator's pushed, it goes up to 34.4 and 35.6, which kind of worried me. Next day, I stuck it in the bike, asked the bike what the bike thought, and the bike said it's 100% full with 65, and when I pronged it at that point, 65.6 and 63. And that is kind of a mystery. However, during the conversation in which I purchased the battery over the phone, the bloke at the importers did mention to me that there's a microchip in the battery control circuitry which is built into the battery, and it looks for a Bluetooth connection after the battery has been woken up. I think I was delivered a sleeping battery 11 months after it left the factory, and if it hadn't been sold, then maybe at the end of, well, what did we say? The end of March, so another 2 months down the track, it would have been declared, okay, it's been on the shelf for too long, we can't sell that as a new battery. It went on sale at $1,000 instead of $2,010 for the Christmas sale, and it was still on the shelf in January, so they sold it to me at the same Christmas sale price. I think that's worth knowing. If you know somebody who needs a battery for one of these, tell them to go and try and get a battery that's in the last 3 or 4 months of its shelf life, and you might get it half price, because, your other option is to pay twice the money to get a battery that's only been 3 or 4 months since it left the factory, because they come here on a boat, maybe 6 months, because that one didn't leave China for 3 months after it was put in the box. Apparently, that's assuming that sticker was printed with the date, put on the box when the box was sealed, and then the shipping date was stamped on the outside of the blank white sticker afterwards. But I don't know that. That's just a guess. So there you go, and now you know. I was going to take it for a ride yesterday, and after one day? No, 2 or 3, 2 days in the bike. The bike says it's now 99% full. So after I woke the battery up by putting it in the bike and letting the bike talk to the Bluetooth connection of the chip in the control circuits, now that battery is looking for a Bluetooth connection to talk to a bike that's switched on all the time. So it's now chewing away at its stored capacity, little bit every day. The story is once you've woken the battery up, then you got to check it and maintenance charge it about every month. My theory is I will alternate these on a weekly basis, although because one of them's got 88 discharge cycles and the other one's got none, I'll probably put in two or three trips on battery number 2 and then do one on battery number 1, then 2 or 3 on battery number 2 and 1, until slowly, gradually battery 2 will catch up with number 1, because it'll be doing twice the work until they get to be even, and then they'll go week and week about. You do you, I'm doing me. This is the best I can come up with at the moment to live my little lifestyle, shitting in the sky as little as possible. As little as possible. Because, like at the moment, North Queensland is having record floods. I think about 1.5 meters of rain in some places in a matter of days. Meanwhile, Victoria is having a heat wave and bushfires, and the whole thing's burning up. Latest figures come from a fellow called Beckwith, Paul Beckwith, YouTube channel. Look him up. Last year, the carbon dioxide concentration rose by either 3.8% calendar year to calendar year, or 3.8%, 3.8 parts per million calendar year to calendar year. It rose by 4.2 parts per million March to March. The global temperature has risen either 2.3 degrees, which is what the latest figures indicate that it has risen by, or 1.6 degrees, which is what the International Government Panel on Climate Change is admitting to the global media, because nobody wants to cause a panic on the stock market sort of thing. The sea ice tongue plugging Thwaites Glacier in Greenland broke up 10 days or a fortnight ago. And the International Society of Actuaries says that by 2055 at the latest and 2035 at the earliest, planet Earth will be globally financially insolvent, because instead of the global economy taking a 2% hit from global warming by 2050, it's going to take a 50% hit. And at a 50% reduction in turnover, nobody can cover their operating costs, let alone pay their insurance. So yeah, you can forget about all of that phantasmagorical bullshit about growing the economy and onward and upward to broad consumer prosperity. It's fucking down the gurgly hole from here on in. Prepare ye to go down the hole. Practice what you preach, dickhead. I try to. Heard an idea on the ABC radio. It might have been on YouTube. Somebody wrote a science fiction book imagining where we would be today if people had woken up to themselves starting in 1912, when the first article was printed in a tabloid news journal, i.e. Popular Mechanics of America, discussing fossil fuels, greenhouse effect, global warming, the effect on civilization and society and the environment, and why it was a dumb idea to keep doing it in 1912. If I ever see a copy of that book or movie, I'm going to buy it. I'd like to support the idea of anybody sitting down and writing a detailed sci-fi novel or a movie about that. Just imagine if everybody had woken up to himself. Say when Eisenhower started NOAA, which I think Trumpy and the Musketeers, the barbarian gangster hordes who have staged a coup, and they've got away with it electorally, to decapitate the government of the USA. Sorry to dump two videos into one, but yeah, just couldn't resist mentioning the Trumpocalypse at the end of this one. So I guess I'm just going to have to come up with a whole new title for this video. Instead of just electric motorcycle spare battery, it's Trumpocalypse and the electric motorcycle spare battery. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao. That's all it takes. $99%. And yes, the stickers, in fact, do line up. And you can think of that as bonus extra footage. Ciao.